Okay, you are live. Hello. I should probably put on my Matrix sunglasses. Here we go. All right, now we're official. You've got a Matrix agent in your as your moderator. This is our first time, well, really anybody's first time trying to run a convention virtually that includes social elements, and we learned a lot yesterday. We had like an hour and a half long after action review where we tried to figure out what we did right and what we did wrong yesterday. It was it was long, but we made some small changes today that we hope will make it a lot easier for folks to use.
I think you pulled it together very, very well, especially for the amount of time that you had to plan it.
Right.
We wanted to get it in within the 2-week quarantine time, right when we were afraid people would want to go out. Especially since there were so many conventions this weekend that were canceled. Yeah. So everybody would have plans, and I know you, at least Christine, you had one planned convention this weekend that was canceled, right?
Yeah, quite a bit. And SIFWA, the nebulas are...
Oh no, I just accidentally muted you. That's my mistake. Still learning. Can you unmute yourself? I can't. Oh no. I can't. There you are. Okay.
All right. Yeah.
You have the power. Okay, go ahead.
Well, SIFWA canceled, so they were testing their virtual system yesterday.
Oh, okay.
And then a group from Constellation and BosCon were testing their virtual system yesterday. Mm-hmm. And New Zealand has now canceled, so WorldCon is going to try to figure out how to go virtual.
Yeah, we just had a panelist that was going to go to that as well from yesterday, and they had been canceled too at WorldCon.
Yeah, this is it. That's a nail biter for us because Air New Zealand has not yet opened up the window for us to bank those dollars.
Oh no!
If that's a lot of airfare. This is gonna open up a whole new thing.
Well, how's their testing going? Let's put it that way. I fully appreciate the need to test after having. Go ahead.
So far, everyone else is using Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
It's going pretty good,
okay.
I think. We had a problem yesterday with, I want to say ConZoom, which is someone shared the link for the test, and then someone came into the chat room and posted all kinds of racist stuff.
Oof.
So, it is what it is. There's going to be trolls, and, some people have too much time now that they're sheltering from home.
Yeah. Jarvis, you have slides up behind you. Did you send me slides?
Yeah.
Okay, let me go find those. We got another minute or two before I don't have them up. Trying to put everything together. Of course, I'm going to miss something.
Oh, no problem. Hey, everybody. Good morning.
Good
Hey.
morning.
Hey, man.
Glad y'all could come.
Jarvis, you're used to moderating panels. Do we have everybody in, or did you want more? I think we had did we have everybody in that you expected?
So far.
Okay. There we go. I found your slides.
Oh, sweet.
Yep.
I'm going to go close the window.
Okay. I got everybody else's slides via email. You sent them to me directly because we're friends on Facebook.
Right.
Yep.
So if any of them pop up, you can let them in as well.
Okay. Looks like
Hey, there's
there we go.
Where's Christine going?
I thought I could close the window and make it look a little bit darker, but that didn't work.
I can see you good.
My concession to doing this was I put on some pants. So
You can't tell if this Matrix agent is wearing pants.
You didn't have to. Not for us.
I brushed my teeth and everything.
Isn't that the work from home joke though? You got to ask people if they're wearing pants, whether or not they tell the truth.
Yeah, that's true. Well, mine aren't exactly pants. I got some gym shorts on.
Okay.
So
It's probably about 80 degrees up there.
actually, up here, it's not so much the temperature. We've got really high winds, gusting up to like 40 miles an hour. So it's like in my place, it's rattling the windows. That's where I went before. I had to go close all the windows because it was loud.
Oh, wow.
All right. And to my team that is currently in the con lobby, my chat is going in and out, so I might need you to relay the chat for me. And thank you very much. I'm going to make myself smaller. I'm rebuilding the scene to show your slides right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So Jarvis, why don't you go ahead and take it away and start so we're not too late. And then I can pop up the slides as soon as I get them in some discernible fashion here.
Okay. Well, what I'll do, I'll just kind of give a little background for people that don't know me and go from there, build up from there. Of course, my name is Jarvis Sheffield. I reside in the Nashville, Tennessee area. I attended Tennessee State University where I got my bachelor's. I went to Trevecca Nazarene University and received my master's, and I'm currently working on my doctorate at Trevecca Nazarene University as well. And I'm studying, my research is in education, dealing with virtual reality as educational tools. Mm-hmm. I'm on a couple of boards, the Urban Media Makers out of Atlanta. That's a consortium of media creators here in Tennessee. I'm on the board of TenShare, which is a consortium of over 600 libraries here in Tennessee. I am very privileged to be the department head for the media centers at Tennessee State University. And so that's a great thing. One of the fun things I get to do now is we created a makerspace called the Imagineering Lab, where we're doing 3D printing. I was actually one of the people, fortunately this week, to work on some of the medical masks that were being 3D printed for our university that we're giving away. So I had a great time working there. And just to move into the creation thing, I was pleased, and I got the opportunity to start Black Science Fiction Society back in 2008. And Black Science Fiction Society is a community of black people around the world that like science fiction, and of course our friends. And so we've been able to share information on creating 3D, sharing on sci-fi. We've been able to create a magazine, a newsletter, a book series, as well as a radio show, which William actually hosts.
Okay. Nice.
Been able to do some really cool things. So a few years ago, one of the members, Glenn Paris, we talked about possibly being part of a more diverse programming section of DragonCon. I told him, like, sure, I'd be more than happy to be a part. Just let me know when. And so some more talks went on, and then he talked to me again in 2017, and he introduced me to Pat Henry, which is one of the founders of DragonCon. So that's how the track got started, was that communication between myself and Glenn introducing me to Pat Henry.
So now that track at DragonCon, that's unique among conventions, right?
Right. I think if my memory serves me correct, I'm pleased to be one of the first black track directors at DragonCon, and the first DragonCon was the first that I know of. I've looked around, I haven't seen it anywhere else, but the first to have a dedicated diversity track. Most conventions or events have a panel or two here and there where they talk about different issues, and then everybody go back home and go back to the status quo. So the diversity track is unique, as well as DragonCon's openness to facilitating differences in race, differences in age, gender, sexuality, all of that good stuff. And we do it through animation, panels, art. We have an art night. We have sketch nights, and we have parties as well. So it's a mix of everything. It's something for everybody at Dragon Con.
Real quick, can I ask for a definition for those that may not know? A track, correct my understanding here if I'm wrong, a track is like a section of a convention that is dedicated to one topic, and you essentially curate content for the entire duration of the convention. So you can go and do nothing but diversity-related things at Dragon Con if you wanted to. Am I wrong there?
Oh, that's correct. Last year we had 22 panels. I think 3 exhibitions. They were like video art. We had 4 parties, which was one of those was the art party, the sketch night. What was that? Family fun night, and then we also had the major party on Thursday night. We had what was that last year? It was Marvel. The year before that, it was Wakanda. This year will be Marvel versus
Also Marvel.
DC. And we had a chance to be in the parade too, so that's always fun.
Oh, that float was amazing.
And all of these wonderful people that are here on the screen with us today are members of the track. They showed up in the track. They've been popped in with Black Science Fiction Society, and I can't thank them enough. Also, I had to put this in so I don't forget it at the end. I want to thank everyone that's remotely related to making this happen. The panelists, the participants, volunteers, leadership, media, and even the hotel staffers. If they weren't on point, that the event wouldn't be as pleasurable as it's been for the last 2 years.
Yeah, and I can't thank my team here enough. You being a track director and me being the project coordinator here, I now feel your pain that you feel every year at Dragon Con. So who did you bring with you here?
That.
Oh, yeah. Especially the technical side. Go ahead.
Okay, we have Christine Taylor Butler up there. That's my adopted auntie. And
she has a panel later, right, as well?
Yes. I have one at 4.
Okay.
And I have prizes.
We have, the Honorable William Hayashi. And we have the always fantastic Tanya Woods.
Welcome. All right. So you have slides, right?
Yes, they should be popping in the back.
Yep. I'm showing them right
now. Just a little information about me and just the philosophy behind the track, the official philosophy. But diversity to me is just us learning to treat each other equally and equitably at all times. In other words, the golden rule. I live by the golden rule, and that's how I look at the track. Everyone that sets foot in those doors gets the same respect.
Okay. This is some of the graphics that you've developed. You have a graphics person as well, right?
I'm the graphics person.
Oh, okay.
Well, I try to be.
Okay.
Yeah, but having a background in media, I like to get my hands dirty in video, graphic design, animation, anything media related.
So you have the tagline there at the bottom: diversity enhances the intellectual, emotional, economic, moral, and spiritual life of the community. And I notice it's not all one group there in the cartoon image that you developed yourself. So
actually I have an artist that does the 2D stuff for me. That's Sue Phillips. She's a member of Black Science Fiction Society, and she's also on our group on Facebook in the diversity group.
Hey, that's me. And Christine Taylor Butler. And
some of those faces are familiar.
Yeah.
Year before last, you sat on a panel that I was moderating.
Yep. So
Marcel.
yes, so you have here the dream of diverse science fiction and fantasy has been in the minds of many since childhood. So, what is it about science fiction and fantasy of your childhood that kind of influenced the way you view diversity now? And how do you define that diversity? And I guess I can ask that to all the panelists.
All right. For me, my entry into science fiction when I was little, I would watch Star Trek and Lost in Space and things of that nature with my older brothers. And so that got me interested in science fiction. And then I think when Star Wars came out, that just blew my mind. And so there were only a few characters that looked like me in there as role models. And so every film that I saw growing up, I was like, oh, looking for the person that looked like me to identify with. And I'm sure other people were doing the same, if you were Spanish or Asian or whatever, in these different films. And so as I grew, I just wanted to have a more equitable representation in science fiction. And so as I've gotten older, and particularly over the last 10 years, it's kind of taken off.
I have a friend. Go ahead. Go.
Well, I was going to say the long-term goal is basically the normalization of science fiction to reflect both the the different kinds of, I'm having trouble with my little phone here, normalizing the various races, the gender issues, and integrating them into the American whole, because there are so many people who are part of the science fiction community, and when you look at the gestalt of what science fiction is, the what ifs cover gender, they cover even religion, they cover race, and all of those are part and parcel of the whole.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how else to look at it as an attempt to have everything reflect the reality of what America, what the world is, rather than kind of like the white male oriented view of science fiction that's pretty much traditional.
And I think you mentioned Star Trek, that they kind of broke that mold a little bit right then and there. And as one of my friends put it once on a very, very succinct Facebook post, any science fiction that doesn't have someone that looks like me in it is not a future I want to be a part of.
Right.
And I
that was Richard Pryor's joke.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Richard Pryor said they don't have any black folks in science fiction because they don't plan for us to be here. But to what you were saying, Marcel, that's exactly right. It's not a future that's reflective of the reality of who we are.
Exactly.
And here's another issue, is that there is an overweight interest in seeing books about, let's say, African Americans or people who are Latinx that are stereotypical, and the contemporary example I would give is I grew up in Ohio, mm-hmm. and what I was exposed to is different than my cousins who grew up in Los Angeles. There is no ubiquitous experience. And so when I was growing up, science fiction was where I got to be normal, where I got to be a nerd, mm-hmm. where it wasn't always about civil rights and oppression. And my favorite, Star Trek episode had to be where it was Frank Gorshin and he is chasing this person. And they said, I don't understand the conflict. He says, can't you see he's black on the right side and I'm black on the left side? And it kind of just blew things apart. So for me, science fiction was where I could get my inner nerd going, mm-hmm. and get to see things that didn't have anything to do with, oppression. So that's how I ended up going to MIT. I was full up on science fiction as my main reading diet.
couple thoughts on that. You touched kind of on typecasting, but also like we talked about this in the panel before, where we brought up that a lot of folks, when they hear that you're not white or something like that, they want to throw you in your section, which is that's not a genre.
Yeah.
While it may be a cultural distinction, it's not a genre. So it's almost like gatekeeping in a way, and then so that's where representation matters. If folks don't see folks that or see stuff that looks or represents their culture or who they are, whether it's their skin color or their religion or anything like that, everybody has something that makes them different. Then it doesn't feel as accessible to them, and so then they don't develop it. Go ahead.
You told a story that I really appreciated when we were on a panel together the very first time I met you about a kid who thought differently. I can't remember if he had Asperger's but he could remember codes. He could remember if he met you 5 years later, if you said your birthday, he could tell you what day of the year you were born. And I have two kids like that. They're like Sheldon. It's like they're not crazy. I had them tested. They have genius IQs, and it was really hard to get people to understand. There's some things they do really well, and some things they don't. But they can do some things other people can't do, and do them fast. And so diversity in science fiction is wonderful because it's not race, it's not gender, it's every way in which we are different, and that difference is our superpower.
Exactly. Oh, she's muted.
Oh, I can't hear Tanya.
Is that me?
I can't either.
Am I here?
There you go.
There you are.
And we lost her again.
Did I lose myself? Am I here now?
Now you're there.
There we go.
Don't move.
All right.
Like the antenna.
I won't move. I was just going to go back to the Star Trek conversation here for a minute. William brought up normalization of diversity, and Star Trek, as fabulous as it is, has been nearly 50 years ago, 60 years ago at this point. And unfortunately, I find in media that we're still taking the approach of, okay, we've got all these people, there can be one person, and that one person can be brown, that one person can be Latino, that one person can be, they can have a different sexuality. And sometimes we do the thing where there's one person and we're going to make that one person represent everybody. So they'll take this singular character and make them as diverse as possible, rather than, there are populations out there. Why aren't they being represented here? And, as much as we talk about we're making leaps and bounds, sometimes I always look at it and we still have this issue where there's the one character. And, even if you look in your regular workplace, the likelihood that there's only one brown person in your office or one gay person in your office is kind of unlikely unless you work at a very small company. So when you see these casts that have, 10 core characters and another 15, 20 actors that are getting at least a biweekly paycheck for their efforts, I still find it difficult, to look at that and say, okay, we're actually doing this right. I mean, I think we're making an effort, but I think that there's still more room. I think also there's lots of room. We talk about current properties and, the fanboys always get up in arms when suddenly a character is brown. Or my favorite is a character that's always been brown, but they've made them white. I think, for instance, Connor Hawke in the DC universe, people are bent out of shape because he's brown on Arrow, but I'm like, he's brown in the books. But maybe you picked up at the part of the books where they had suddenly made him white, which was weird. So, we have to encourage people not to look at a character, and that's kind of where you stop. I think that the greatest thing about all sci-fi is that we take these characters and we make them our own. We become very invested in them. That's why we have franchises. That's why we have book series, because you read these characters and you become very invested in their lives and who they are and why they're in this universe and how they operate in that sphere. And so it's unfortunate that when people encounter a brown character, they kind of get stuck on the fact that this character is brown versus, this is a character that is living 2,000 years in the future on a faraway planet. And, they're up against this particular obstacle. So yeah, I think, one of the things that we talk about often in Black sci-fi is promoting efforts of new characters. One of the things that the fanboys always scream about is, why are you taking this character that I already know that, as far as they're concerned in canon, is, a a white male, why are you now making this character female, or why are you making this character a character of color? But we often miss the conversation about developing new properties that do have a more inclusive environment. And I think that's one of the great things that Black Sci-Fi has done, is that there's definitely a component to elevating the work of creators that are trying to make more diverse characters, that are trying to build more diverse universes.
Well said.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to go off on a
Oh, it's all
Oh,
right.
yes, you did.
It's all
That
right.
was
It is all
good.
No,
right.
I didn't.
That was
No, I
fun.
didn't.
Yeah, but we have to think in terms of science fiction is fiction, and this can be. We don't have to tie this to the immediate stuff that you see walking around. We can dream of futures that we want to see, not necessarily what's walking around right now. So that's the great part about it, that we can develop whatever genre, whatever race, whatever alien creature or society that you want to see in science fiction.
Well
You know,
said.
there's a reluctance. Oh, there's a reluctance out there for let's just, mainstream white sci-fi consumers to take a look at, maybe black themed or black charactered science fiction. I was in a panel discussion, and an older man sitting in the front row. He was like in his 70s, and he asked a really good question. I almost gave a really flip answer, but his question was, do I have to know about black culture in order to appreciate black science fiction? And I almost said something snippety, but I thought about that, and he was absolutely right. So I asked the whole room, how many of you knew about big-ass blue people before you saw Avatar? And everybody laughed, because they didn't know any big-ass blue people before the movie. And that's something that I think we should keep our eyes on, keep focused on, is above all else, no matter what you write, no matter what gender, what race, all of these other elements that you include in your stories, they still have to be compelling stories. Otherwise, nobody's going to read them.
Right. And I'm that outlier that says, I am always behind the scenes feeding this whole issue on race. But the problem is, when we say diversity, it's gotten to the point where at other conferences, people don't want to go to diversity panels because they think the only thing it's going to be about is race, which is why I go back to, I'm a scientist and my husband is a scientist, and we ended up with a fine arts kid who speaks Japanese and a filmmaker who speaks fluent Italian. And I live in the Midwest, where even if you take race away, I had people saying, how could you let your kid go to Italy when she's 15 to live for a year? And I said, how could I not? And I live in a community where people draw a line 100 miles around Kansas City and say that's as far as their children can go to college, regardless of what their race is. I live in an area where there's a lot of rural communities where the kids are not exposed to anything but agricultural stuff. And they're reading sci-fi because it's their way of getting out of their heads and out of their communities and seeing something bigger and broader. And so one of the things I have loved about the diversity panels, especially at Dragon Con, is they are mixed in terms of gender. They are mixed in terms of fan base. They are mixed in terms of race. It's not just a race-based discussion. And I think if we can get some of those people who are reticent to look at diversity to start thinking of, all the different ways in which we are different and why people need to read books in which they see themselves. Regardless of all those other boxes that we put, you can see yourself in a book. If we can pull you into that story, maybe we introduce a little bit more humanity when those people who leave that book go back out in the world. Cough, cough, President of the United States.
One of the things that was unexpected to me, but was very, very, very welcome, was when the last time I was at Dragon Con, and Jarvis had put together, panels on even ageism, because a lot of people don't tend to think in terms of that. And that was kind of brought home to me this last week when people were talking about the coronavirus and at-risk populations, and I go, yeah, those people should be really careful. And they a couple of people looked at me and said, no, that's you. You just forgot, because I don't see myself as being an old ass guy, but I'm supposedly in that at-risk population.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we tend not to think about things that aren't pointed out front and
Right.
center.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really cool that Jarvis had, discussions about ageism in science fiction, how are characters depicted, are they avoided, things like that. So, to what you said, Christine, all aspects of being non-standard, stereotypical
Right.
golden age white sci-fi characters or sci-fi people were not only represented, but we had some really good discussions around all of those issues.
Just an interesting thought, though. You're getting into the concept of identity almost, and like you don't necessarily identify as an older person, although the coronavirus might not care. So like you may not identify necessarily with that culture, but also the folks in that culture may the actual thoughts and perceptions that they have of themselves may not be represented by the media itself, and that's why I think representation within the content production itself is important to capture that perspective, in my opinion. So the strategic narrative, the thing that everybody can rally behind, is to have representation, but the actual the writing and the production and everything, it needs to have diversity as well. So those perspectives that you may not even understand are represented.
Yeah. Well, I'm like everybody else who's not, your, like I said, your standard typical white protagonist in a sci-fi story. I'm still looking for a story that has, people in it like me. I've seen no stories at all with a half black, half Japanese lesbian trapped in a man's body. And I think it's about time that we start looking at pushing the boundaries. But that's just me.
Now,
Stop it.
William, I just
I'm
talked
supposed
about
to
why
say-
one character
do you
can't
identify
engender
as a woman?
everything.
I'm sorry?
I said, do you identify as a woman then?
No, well, no, I'm a lesbian trapped in a man's body. Believe me, it all works out.
Okay,
I've got this.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, but one thing with the diversity track, it's very important that we expose ourselves to people that don't look like us and don't live like us, and
True.
get a chance to communicate and hear a different perspective. It's always good to get different perspectives on things, and by having a truly diverse panel or a series of panels, you get to walk in the shoes of other people that you normally wouldn't. And so you get to see a little more and learn a little more about each other. And so that once you do that, we can do a lot more in terms of communication. And when you can communicate, you can make a lot of great things happen when you communicate better. And that happens when you learn about others outside of your own purview.
Okay, so
I think it all.
we're actually
Go
out
ahead.
of time. So we hit our 1 o'clock hour here. But I would, I think I told you guys to try to convince Christine to let you pop into her panel later. Now
Yeah.
if you can.
Okay.
You can. I am going to come up with some kind of puzzle, because when I go
Uh-oh.
out, everyone wants to know how they can get their hands on those 3D wooden puzzles that Judy Peterson makes at Fantaminals. And so I have.
Well, I have the laser.
You do.
We can
Yeah.
talk offline. I do. Yes.
So I have things that I might give away. I'm figuring that out. But yeah, come
Awesome.
play.
Awesome.
Come play.
And then we also have The Heroine's Journey with Valerie Frankel at 3 o'clock. Might interest some folks. We've got Wakanda Forever, The Psychology of Black Panther. We've got 3 doctors tuning into that one. So don't pop in, but be sure to tune in for that one. That one's at 1:30. And we've got a bunch of other cosplay ones today. So thank you very much for joining me.
All right. Thank you, Marcel. This has been a great experience.
Thanks for having us.
We'll have to give you more time next time.
Okay, cool.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.